What's good, y'all? This is SA, and for years I've been developing a turn-based role-playing game called Guardians of RPG. Yes, I know how the title sounds, just hear me out for a second. In this game, you wake up in a small town with no memories of your past life. In your quest to find yourself and your purpose, you encounter an evil organization and stop their plans to uncover the 3 holy relics needed to refactor the world into their own image. Ever since I came out with my second MVP, play the demo on itch.io, I've been meaning to completely overhaul the whole game and make it more efficient and dynamic for future releases. The thing is, I've been taking a break from it as of late. But that ends today, because from this point on, I want to start giving you guys monthly updates on the game's process with the hopes of releasing a demo this year. But before you go, I want to show you all the things I've been working on since the last version. The character is different now, and for anybody that cared, originally the character was supposed to be black, but I just don't know how to make pixel art that well. So when I was making my first 2 MVPs, I decided that spending time trying to learn and make pixel art myself would only hinder me from actually developing the game. And developing the game, even if it wasn't a completed project, was the fastest path towards learning more about game development. So I bought mostly all of my sprites from these pixel artists and decided to use the most similar looking ones for my male and female sprites. But there was no way these were ever going to be the final designs, and thankfully, I was able to change them. One of the creators, GIF not GIF, actually made a sprite template sheet that would empower me to create my own sprites without having to go through the process of studying and constructing the body myself from scratch. So after doing a little bit of research on pixel artists and their tips and tricks, I managed to modify the template sheet to create the real main characters for my game. Personally, I like the character designs a lot, and I think it falls more in line for what I envisioned the characters to actually look like in the first place. There's still a list of other characters that are going to need a sprite change as well, but I haven't fully gotten to those characters yet, so we're moving on. The map for the game is also different. I think my skills in generating maps could still use some work, but the scenes now have more depth by constructing the tiles in different layers, adding lighting effects, and creating everything at a relatively decent size. In previous versions of the game, you could walk around and get pretty bored pretty quickly because everything was so spread out, and yet there was very little to do. I've tried keeping those design elements in mind when making the new game maps. Most scenes are not large, and when they are, they have a lot more going on to keep the player interested / invested in navigating the world around them. Another thing I did was learn the proper way to generate collision boxes for my environment. In the past, I would just add box colliders for every corner or create a polygon collider that would surround certain objects and borders in the map. The problem with this was that A, it took too long to do, and B, it left me with very inconsistent colliders that, for me at least, were very noticeable and irritating. Now I use composite colliders, and this pretty much standardizes every single background object in a game that requires a fraction of the time and effort. Besides the background objects in the game that you collide into, there are also objects in the game that you can interact with. For these objects, I made them glow whenever you bump into them as an indicator that they are interactable. In the past, the E button would appear above an object to let you know you could interact with it. But in the future, there will be cases where players bind their controls to something other than the E button on their keyboard, so it made more sense to have a completely new indicator for when it's possible to interact with an object. Another thing that's gotten an improvement was the NPC companion feature. NPC companions will play an important part of the story, so I wanted to make sure that part of the gaming experience looked more polished than how it did in previous versions. In version 1.02, the NPC companions would always jitter and lag behind the player. This is mainly because the player doesn't actually have tile-based movement, but pixel-based movement. As a result of this style, the NPCs that would follow the player would also have to take this pixel-based movement into account, and the calculations for how I did that were always off. So instead of playing with the pixel-based movement style for my NPCs, I decided to just have them travel to the player via linear interpolation instead. It's a different approach for sure, but one that I think still looks better than how they traveled before. And of course, there are some quality of life changes to the game I added as well, such as the UI designs and animations, as well as the camera tracking feature. So that's all I got for you guys today. If there was any topic that you guys wanted more information on, I've got some links in the description that helped me get started on implementing these features. Of course, none of this is perfect, nor are any of these completely set in stone. But if you want to show your support, feel free to playtest the previous version of Guardians of RPG and let me know what features you want to see added or improved. And with that being said, I'm gonna see y'all later. Peace.